You've noticed, and you've noticed I haven't started recording. Feel free to let me know.
Okay.
And for the recording's sake, I'm going to say, welcome to level 1 of the Breath Master Certification, Strong 1 and orientation. This is the beginning of the new you and a new aspect of your wonderful, wonderful life.
Yes.
So I hope that you are as enthusiastic, and I think you are, about this process as I have been in the developmental stages, in my developmental stage or stages. This is a very, very, very rewarding scenario because the breath is intrinsic to life. And as I mentioned, my good brother Anthony Crutcher stated to me, it's the only companion you have from the beginning of life out of the womb until you transition. It stays with you, you know, in perpetuity. It doesn't leave you until the very last breath. And when it leaves you, it's the last thing that leaves you. So it is your constant companion. And it's a very helpful companion. It can make your life so much richer. The more you engage your relationship with the breath, hey, I just thought of that. The more you engage your relationship with the breath, I'm taking notes for myself in my head.
I love it.
Yeah, the more you engage your relationship with the breath, the richer your relationship with the breath, the more vibrant your life is, you know, not becomes, but is, in the very moment that you change your relationship with the breath in a very dynamic way, it changes immediately. So you immediately begin to experience the benefits thereof. It's so powerful that it's borderline magical. It creates life, you know. I mean, other than, you know, God, Creator, Mother, Father, so on and so forth. The breath is what sustains life. It creates life in every moment, because the moment you don't have the breath, you don't have life. So it, you know, that whole thing of respiration, inspiration, bringing in the spirit, you know, consistently and constantly is what the breath does. So I honor that, and I honor you in this process, and I look forward to helping you in your relationship with the breath in a way that it's going to just enhance your life and the life of those around you as you embrace them. Now, the beauty of the breath is this. One of the many aspects of it is when you are doing your breath work, it changes the energetic dynamic wherever you are, because it allows you to shift. You've heard the expression, I can't really change anybody's actions but my own.
Right. Mm-hmm.
The moment you shift into a deeper, fuller breathing pattern, you've shifted your whole being, all aspects of your body, mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, ethereal, energetic, quantum, all of that shifts. And when you do that, you show up differently. So you engage the world differently, and the world engages you differently. You know, so you can be of spontaneous benefit to anybody and everybody you're around when you do that. So we're going to learn what I call the breath master technique. And let me say also that in this process, we're going to take advantage of 3 things primarily. And this is what actually creates breath work. Those 3 things are when you change or shift the depth of your breath, the pacing of your breath, and the rhythm of your breath. Those are the 3 things that we use to actually constitute breath work. Because when you get a fuller, deeper breath, everything internally starts to calm down, starts to shift energetically, because now it has more oxygen, it has more prana, it has more chi, it has more life force. So it becomes more vibrant. When you exhale fully, and you release all of those sedentary things that have been in the recesses of the body for who knows how long, and you massage those organs, you squeeze out waste matter, and you squeeze out toxic energy, you shift hormones. You begin to move into a space where the stress hormones, the endorphins and all of those things begin to subside, and all of the calm, relaxing, meditative, feel-good hormones, serotonin, melatonin, and all those things that help the brain function in a very dynamic and spiritual and divine and magical way. You begin to just nourish, and they just rise up, and your whole body, your whole being becomes enhanced. And when you're in a space with other people, other energy beings, the higher your vibration, the more you're going to raise the vibration of the people in that space, and the less they're going to lower your vibration. It's not to say that you're not going to be in any personal relationship scenario and somebody going to get on your nerves and you're going to be able to go, and they're going to be all benevolent. I wish.
Right, that part.
I wish. But in the grand scheme of things, over time and over the course of the process of life, the more you do this, the better. And over time, hopefully, in those scenarios, in those relationships with those people that happen to be long term, hopefully they will pick up and grasp some of the things that you're sharing. Because invariably, we all are role models. We all are sharing, even though it may not be our intention. Folks looking at us, they getting frustrated, they imitating, they want to be, like me and all of this kind of stuff. So, and it ain't got nothing to do with what I'm thinking, what I'm doing while I'm walking my walk. It has to do with what they're experiencing in this space, and you happen to be there. And the beauty of that is you are always, always, always a potential guide.
Mm.
And when you have little ones, it is the most benevolent thing you can do, letting them hear the sound of your breath. I'm going to send you a recording of the sound of the breath master technique. And that recording will allow you to practice your breath. It will allow you to acclimate to the breath master technique. It will allow you to also fill the room. Like, you have the solfeggio tunes that fills the room to change the energy in the space. That breath, that's the sound of the breath does that. And the way it does that is it activates our initial experience of the feeling of what's going on around us. When we're in the womb, we hear the sounds of our mother's breath and the sound of our mother's heartbeat. Mm-hmm. And hearing that at a later stage in life takes you back to that space. And this is not just subconscious, this is the superconscious. So we're actually activating a hypnotic event that helps people to supersede, override, and basically go back to a time and space where they didn't have the trauma or traumas that happened when they got outside of the womb. So when you do that, it's very therapeutic. And it's therapy on a level that can't be talked. Issues can't be talked away, but they can literally be breathed away. Because you're moving into a pre-trauma state. And the more you're in a pre-trauma state, the less you're in a trauma state. So this is how we help people with their psyche without even doing anything except breathing. That's how powerful breath is. I have folks who have used this recording with folks they're having clinical therapy with. Children who are acting out, they'll, you sit in that room over there and they'll play the sound and they'll walk away. Come back, they got a whole different child to deal with. And all they did was just play the recording of the sound of the breath. Listen, and so they listen to me breathe or listen to the breath. So So you'll be able to use that tool for your benefit and the benefit of others. And you can also play it in the backdrop of a space, similar to playing, music in the background. You can have that woven into the music, and it won't even be noticed depending upon how audible it is. But
Mm.
the shift in the individual and their spirit will be noticeable if you're taking time to make note of what you see. And it's also a good experiment to do to get you more aware of the power of the breath and the tools that you have at your disposal, and hopefully help you to activate them more often. Any questions so far?
Yes, I do have one question. You said that exhale. I liked when you said that exhale squeezes the organs. What do you mean by that?
Okay, now we're talking about the anatomy of the breath. What I mean by that is this, and matter of fact, let me just get into the lesson. The breath master technique is two basic components, actually three, but the two primaries are inhalation and exhalation. That's the breath, period. And then there's a pause in between because you can't do both at the same time. There's a minute transitional phase that takes a millisecond sometimes. So when you inhale, and what we do to inhale, we do what is called the Kajari Mudra, or tongue placement, as is known by the Taoists. Kajari Mudra is the yogic expression. And that's where you take the tip of the tongue and you place it to the roof of the mouth, like so, and you just curl the tongue back and you maintain contact with the roof of the mouth. You can go back as far as you want, but you don't have to stress. As long as you're maintaining contact with the roof of the mouth at any point, right behind the teeth is the wind point. At the tip of the roof of the mouth is the fire point. And at the very back, as far as you can reach, is the water point. And when I heard this, I thought about it. Wind behind the teeth. That's where you feel the wind. You feel the air coming into the body. When you place, and also when you look at the body in three segments internally. When I was taught by Dr. Africa, he talked about we break the body into three parts: upper, middle, and lower, as far as the internal organs are concerned. These are the mechanisms and these are the things that operate our body. So when you're doing something like reflexology or reflective principles, you work on the upper part of any part of the body, i.e., if I'm doing reflexology on the hand, the upper part of the hand is the head and neck, so the fingers, and then where it's connected is the neck, and so on. And then the middle part, you got your middle organs, you got your heart, your lungs, and so on. And then the lower, you have your lower organs, your digestive organs, which, air comes into the top part of the body. It heats up in the middle part of the body with the stomach and all that stuff, the furnace, as they call it, the dantian. And then in the lower part of the body is a waterway where you release all of the liquids and other matter out of the body. So, and when you are making contact with the roof of the mouth and those 3 points, you're actually affecting a connection between those 3 parts of the inner workings of the body. And the middle point, you actually heat up when you're doing this. But then when you curl your tongue all the way back, what happens is you activate the salivary glands and water begins to accumulate in the back of your throat. So those 3 points are literally affected in that way, which is why I'm assuming they gave them that name: wind, fire, and water. So in the roof of the mouth, that's what you come in contact with. And what happens is, and this was not explained to me, I had to figure it out, is when you curl the tongue back, the back of the tongue, like this is my tongue, the very back where it connects to the esophagus, trachea, and all of that stuff. When I curl my tongue up front, it causes that to press down, which means that the opening behind at the back of the tongue, when I press down, that opening opens up. So I have more space for oxygen to get in. So that's the primary dynamic of why we use the tongue curling and tongue placement on the inhalation. And over time, you'll be able to hear the sound. You may be able to hear it readily. And that's part of the goal of this process also, is for you to actually be able to audibly hear the sound of your breath, and to not necessarily project that sound, but do it audibly enough that others can hear it if they're in this space. Depending upon the acoustics of a room, It could be 100 square foot or 50 or whatever square foot room, and I can make that sound and everybody in the room can hear me without a microphone. That's the inhalation. And then on the exhalation, obviously, you're making the sound. So on the exhalation, we're doing what's known as the cleansing breath in yoga. And it's called the cleansing breath is because when you exhale and you extend that breath, that part of the breath, that do that slowly for me. Just you go, make sure you're making not but put the H in front of it and continue like that. Now hold it. Okay, go ahead and breathe. When I said hold it, what did you feel? Or what were you feeling at that point?
At that point, I felt almost like I needed to take an inhale.
Mm-hmm. So physically, what did you feel outside of that in your body? What was happening with your body? Let's do it one more time, and I want you to pay attention physically to your body. Okay.
My chest got tight.
Okay. Is that all?
And this felt, my right here felt like it was like an open, like something was stretching.
Okay. Is that all?
And my head feels lighter.
Okay. So you're one of those upper people. You're up here. Because the most activated thing that you didn't notice, you didn't express, is your abdominal muscles.
Mm.
Now, I want you to focus on your abdominal muscles. I want you to tell me what it is that you experienced there. I'm gonna do this one more time.
Okay.
Hold. Okay, go ahead and breathe. What did you feel in your abdominal region?
I felt it was like sinking in and coming inward with each exhale. It was with each moment of the exhale just kept coming in tighter and tighter and tighter until almost like locked in the holding of the breath.
Now, if you notice, now that you've noticed that, tell me, what was the most dynamic thing you just experienced with the breath?
The most dynamic thing I experienced
Of
with the
the,
breath.
of the things that you expressed to me, let me say that, of the things that you expressed to me before I just brought your attention to the abdominals and with the abdominals, what was the most dynamic thing that you experienced of those things?
Mm. I want to say release.
Okay. I'll release. I'm talking about basically, I gave you three choices. You said the throat, you said the chest, you said the abdominal, and you said the lightness of the head. Of those four things, this is a multiple choice question. Which of those four things was the most dynamic?
The abdominal.
There you go. Now, back to the original question you asked me. What did I mean by squeezing of the organs? So when you exhale like that, you engage the abdominals, and invariably everything that's down in that area is going to get squeezed. So That's the part of the anatomy of the breath. What happens internally is this. As you inhale, the rib cage expands outward, and the diaphragm presses down. Between the rib cage, between the diaphragm and the pelvic floor, you have all of the waterways of the body, all of your internal organs, your digestive system, basically your intestines, kidneys, liver, spleen, all of that stuff. And when you inhale, the diaphragm presses those things down. As the lungs move down, the diaphragm pushes down and goes down into the abdominal cavity when you're taking a really full breath. Then when you exhale, what happens is the rib cage begins to contract like a bellows. It presses the outside, it goes in like this, and the diaphragm begins to come up. And as it comes up, it folds like this, and it creates a vacuum, and it actually pulls the organs up, elongating them upward. At the same time, the abdominal muscles are pressing toward the back and squeezing those organs. So internally, what's happening is as you inhale, goes down, exhale comes up. So you get this internal massage of the internal organs as you inhale and exhale. And when you're doing it slow, you're doing it, in a very dynamic way that's allowing the organs to be massaged and waste matter to be squeezed out, because all of the digestive organs are basically bags along a long tube that have an entry point and an exit point for each one of them. And stuff needs to move through. So in that massaging process, you're getting more oxygen in as well. And the oxygen is actually enlivening the organs because it's bringing more oxygen, more prana, more chi to each and every cell of the body. And in turn, with the physical massaging, you're squeezing stuff out the exit side of those bags. So you're aiding digestion and you're massaging the organs. And also, we learn in traditional Chinese medicine that each of our organs houses the energy for a given emotion. And so when you're massaging the organs with this dynamic breath, you're also giving yourself an emotional massage. And these are aha moments and talking points when you get to the point where you're, doing breath work and sharing it with other individuals that will give them things to walk away with that will enrich their experience and hopefully encourage them to really engage the breath more dynamically and what have you. And for people who are on a spiritual journey, this is a major, major tool for them to have in their toolbox. And for people who don't even know that they're on the verge of their spiritual journey, this will be an awakening moment for them. And you're going to see people that if you get into, like I said, training people, you're going to see folks who may be in the audience who will look like this, and like, oh, and then someone will be like, ooh, it's like, ah, it'll have the aha, ooh, ah moments for a lot of them. And what are we doing? Breathing. So let's go ahead and let's get into the full practice of the breath master technique. So we're going to place the tip of the tongue to the roof of the mouth. And I like the fact that you adjusted where you're sitting because you want to give maximum space for the lungs to move up and down. So place the tip of the tongue to the roof of the mouth, curl it back, and inhale softly into the nostrils, allowing the abdomen to expand very gently. Once the abdomen is full, the chest will begin to expand outward. Once you reach full capacity, you release the tongue, drop the jaw, exhale with a place the tip of the tongue to the roof of the mouth and curl it back once again. Inhale nice and softly. Release your tongue, drop the jaw, exhale with her. Go back once again, inhale. Release it and exhale. Okay. Obviously, you've been doing breath work because your lung capacity is beyond the average. What I did notice is that you spend more time exhaling than you do inhaling. Both very long compared to the normal regular person, but you spend more time exhaling than inhaling, which is okay. You want to get to a point where you kind of even as possible, because everything is about balance, of course. How do you feel?
Centered.
Feel like you've been meditating, right?
Yeah.
The breath is a meditation, and it is hypnotic, and it allows for us to become our more divine selves. It moves us out of our headspace. One of my taglines is, as a breath master, my job is to get you into your body so you can get out of your mind and move into your spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And the getting into your body part comes into play with that squeezing of the organs, because again, all of your organs have the energy of giving emotion. So you squeeze out all of that stress and all of the debris, and you allow for the divinity, the openness, the calm, the elevation to happen internally. And that shifts the spirit, and it also moves the emotions. You ever been in a space or seen a scene, maybe on television or whatever, where everything is chaotic? There's been an accident and people are frantic, they're running around, they can't, center themselves and what have you, and they're looking for something to help them. And then you have this one individual or more who's like, everybody calm down, wait, let's just, and, start directing, even though they may not be the person, quote unquote, in charge. They are the person who is charged. They're charged on a dynamic level by the way they breathe and the oxygen and what have you. It's not necessarily assessed by them. You have these people who are taught how to talk to people in chaotic states and whatever, talk people down, quote unquote, and then that may not be taught the breath. But if you look at that person, the one thing that allows them to maintain their composure is the way that they're breathing. They're not breathing frantically like everyone else, because that puts you in the fight or flight mode. When you're breathing upper chest breathing, for some people, they take full breath. You'll hear them go.
Mm-hmm.
That keeps you up here. Now, the other aspect of the anatomy of the breath is this. The lungs internally, they fill the upper chest cavity. When they extend down, they extend into the abdominal cavity. The upper part of the lungs if you're breathing up here, you're not activating the massage of the internal organs. You're not squeezing out those emotions. You're not bringing in those calm, relaxing, meditative hormones. You're allowing those stress hormones to stay active. Upper chest breathing is your fight or flight. When you take full deeper breaths, you get into that meditative state. You're breathing into the lower portion of the lungs, which I call relaxation meditation. Other people may call it rest and release, or rest and relax. So upper chest, fight or flight, abdominal region, as far as the lung movement, relaxation, meditation. So you are able to maintain composure, and when everything else around you may be chaotic and the people may be frantic, you're able to stay centered, and you're automatically put in the driver's seat of the situation because it's not driving you. And those who are frantic around you will look at you and automatically gravitate towards you because they're in need of calm. And your name in that space is calm. These are some things that happens as far as noticing these things when you do breath work. I pay great attention to detail. And a lot of the things that I'm going to be expressing to you in this process, you've already heard, seen, done, participated in, processed, and what have you. But you didn't, a lot of it, you didn't slow it down to the point where it's like you're looking at, everything like through a microscope as far as the whole process is concerned, and extracting the details and what have you. And this is how basically I'm able to guide this experience because of the fact that I've paid such great attention to these details. And then I've examined my own experience in this process and extrapolated from that, what is the outcome and what's the commonality, the common thread, if you will, which is the breath for everybody. And so from that, I can guide this experience, and this is how you'll be able to guide other people's experience. Now, when you asked me the question earlier about what did I mean by squeezing of the organs, I didn't answer that question directly. I guided you through an experience that allowed you to gain the awareness and the knowledge through the experience. That is indelible. Now that you've experienced that, you can't forget it. You may not think about it because it's not stuff that just stays in the frontal lobe all the time, but you can't forget it. If I just given you the answer and you wrote it down, took notes, you had to go back and check your notes. Or what did you say? Oh, let me check my notes. All that stuff is fine, but when in the practical aspects of life, you ain't got time to check no notes. It's called living and being. So that's how we do this in this experience. Okay, so that's a breath master technique. Let me see you do it by yourself one more time. I'm going to guide you. I'm going to talk you through it. I'm not going to participate.
Okay.
Place the tip of the tongue to the roof of the mouth. Mouth is closed.
Okay.
Inhale through the nostrils, gently, allowing the abdomen to expand outward. Very gently, diaphragm presses down.
Oh, I think I already kind of didn't do it. Like sometimes my lungs like to go out first before my abdomen, so I have to like get it in my head. So let me just try it again.
Yeah.
Okay.
Focus on the sound of my breath and what's happening in your body, and try to do it as I say it. So place the tip of the tongue to the roof of the mouth, curl it back nice and gentle. Begin to inhale through the nostrils, feeling the air come through the nasal passage down into the lungs, allowing the diaphragm to press down, allowing the abdomen to expand outward very slowly. You want to take the breath incrementally. Once the abdomen has expanded, the chest begins to expand outward. And you experience the fullness of the lungs. Once the lungs are full, you're going to release the tongue from the top palate, drop it to the bottom palate, and open the mouth, jaw unhinges, and exhale with a, as if you're fogging a mirror to put the little heart or, a little love message. Continue the exhalation nice and softly till you feel the abdomen begin to contract tighter and tighter, tighter and tighter. Once you fully express the breath, you want to place the tongue back to the roof of the mouth once again, curl it back, mouth closed, inhale, nice and softly. There's a progression in this process. The more you exhale out, the more you'll be able to get in. And you want to do it slowly. Once the lungs are full, once again, you release the tongue again and exhale with them. You want to do this so slow that you can actually begin to feel the heat of the breath wafting and striking the nose and feeling like the moisture that comes out of the body with that. Once the lungs are empty again, you're going to curl the tongue back and inhale once again, nice and softly. Lungs full, release the tongue, drop the jaw, exhale once again. We're going to do it once more, and I'm going to change one thing. So just flow with me. Tip of the tongue, roof of mouth, curl it back nice and softly. Inhale, abdomen expanding, diaphragm moving down, chest expanding. Once the lungs are full, I want you to hold and fill it up as much as possible though. Get all of the incremental air that you can. Oxygenate, oxygenate, oxygenate. And hold. You should feel an internal pressure or pressurization. Now that you've embraced that experience, I want you to release the tongue, drop the jaw, and exhale nice and softly from the beginning to the very end. Fully expressing the breath, allowing every molecule of carbon dioxide to leave your body. And once you've fully expressed, I want you to hold the abdominal muscles tight on the end of that exhalation. Squeeze, 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 squeeze out as much as possible and hold. Go ahead and relax and breathe normally. So aside from the phenomenal meditation you just experienced, I want you in the future, as you're doing this, from time to time, I want you to hold the breath with the lungs full and hold the breath with the lungs empty. There's another exercise that we're going to do, that we're going to do a very dynamic movement, and that we're going to do that same thing. And what happens internally when you create that pressurization by having the lungs as full as possible, and there's so much oxygen that your body can't hold it all, and it becomes pressurized inside. That's similar to the external lung, the barometric chamber that presses and pressurizes oxygen into the cells. They're doing this on the outside, but you're able to do that on your lung with your lungs internally. You're able to pressurize more oxygen into the cells by taking as full a breath as possible and holding it. Then when you do the inverse, when you exhale all of the carbon dioxide out of your body to the most minuscule amount, to the point where you don't have anything left, and you hold that, you wind up experiencing what's called oxygen deprivation. We only want to do that for a brief period of time because you definitely need to breathe. And what happens is when you experience oxygen deprivation, it internally, physiologically, the same thing that happens with starvation. Your body begins to crave and want more of what it needs. And when it gets it, it holds on to more of it because it's like, okay, well, I ain't gonna lose all this again, so let me just stock up. So you begin to ramp up your oxygen stores. So just that simple exercise alone allows you to increase the oxygenation in your blood exponentially. And when you increase the oxygen in your blood, you reduce oxidative stress and all of that free radical damage and all of this kind of stuff. And you haven't taken one pill. So these are some of the things that happen with that. Any questions? We're going to move on.
Yeah, like when I was holding my breath after that inhale, I found that doing the exhale was hard. Like I wanted to take an inhale. What was happening there? Like after I held it, I was like, I wanted to take an inhale rather than exhale.
What happened internally was the exchange of carbon dioxide with oxygen. And so your body needed, was craving, beginning to crave more oxygen because of the fact that during the time that you had paused, enough of the oxygen had gotten exchanged with carbon dioxide to the point where you began to need more oxygen. And but before you could get more oxygen, you had to create space for it, of course. So you had to exhale, even though your body was like, you know, the autonomic scenario was like, get more oxygen, got to get rid of it. So you had to go ahead and exhale. Now, when you exhale, even though you had that space of wanting more oxygen, as you exhale, the carbon dioxide, which is a muscle relaxant, it actually relaxes the heart. This is why when we have somebody with the hiccups, we tell them to breathe into a bag. Basically, you're telling them to recycle the breath, i.e., not recycle oxygen, but recycle the carbon dioxide to relax that fluttering or spasm that's happening in the diaphragm that's causing the hiccup, or that is the hiccup. So you can tell somebody to hold their breath, and the same thing, the carbon dioxide will accumulate and will allow for all of the muscles internally to begin to relax, including those organs that are actually muscles. The diaphragm is an organ and a muscle. The heart is an organ and a muscle. The uterus, the prostate are organs and muscles. So all of those things begin to relax more when you increase the carbon dioxide in the body. But you don't want to wind up having a heightened quote unquote CO2 level. You don't want to do this thing excessively, because you definitely want to have more oxygen and carbon dioxide in your body at any given point in time.
Okay.
So that's part of the dynamics of that. Now, there's so many nuances in this process. And I like the fact that you asked that question, because nobody ever asked me that before. So I didn't give that response before. But now, not only do you know, I know. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate that. Anything else?
There's so much. It was amazing to feel, because I felt my abdomen come out before with breath, but I've never felt that going down with the diaphragm.
Mm-hmm.
That and do you feel that? I felt it on my sides here.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the place where you usually feel that diaphragm going up and down?
Mm-hmm.
Even though I know it's located here, but I
Right.
felt it on my sides.
Yep. Those are the oblique muscles, and those also in the rib cage region, those are the muscles of the rib cage. Now, I spoke earlier about the bellows effect, where you're squeezing like this. Now, the other aspect of anatomical aspect of the breath is the cleansing breath. When you're doing the sound, this is why you emphasize the H sound. The sound of the letter H takes certain muscles in the body. So this is part of the next part of our lesson in regards to the breath master technique. Do me a favor, say H.
H.
Emphasize it, H.
H.
Now extended, H.
H.
Now extended really long.
H.
Now, what did you notice?
I noticed it felt like all of the oxygen, all the breath, the carbon dioxide was just pushing out of my body. It was like that H sound pushed it out.
And what muscles did you feel activated more than anything in that process?
Here, like my abdomen.
The same
area.
muscles that you talked about, right?
Right.
Okay. The sound that I mean, the
right
physical
here.
dynamic of what it takes to make the sound of the letter H, the ch, the h, it takes the abdominal muscles to make the sound. You remember in elementary school I'm assuming that the teacher told you to say "buh," and then she told you or he told you you need your lips to make the sound "buh,"
Mm-hmm.
and to say "the." You need your tongue behind your teeth in order to say "the." So you have your lip muscles engaging to make the sound "buh." You have your tongue engaging to make the sound "the." To make the sound "ha," you engage the abdominal muscles are engaged.
Yeah.
So this is where the attention to detail and noticing what's happening with the experience is so powerful. What that experience taught me was that the sound of the letter H activates the abdominal muscles. So when you isolate the sound of the letter H, when you leave the you just go with the H. I mean, over in England, they say H. And it's even more dynamic than just saying H because you activate it at the beginning and the end. H. When you say H, your stomach just literally just does this.
Yep.
H.
Mm-hmm.
H versus
H.
H. Now we say H,
H.
it activates on the backhand.
Yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm. I feel
And
that.
might even add that to it. Now, it's awesome. I love this stuff. I learn more stuff all the time. So anyway, yeah, it takes those muscles to activate it to make that sound. So a good practice to do is what I call fogging the mirror. And this is for people who have an issue with acclimating to the breath master technique. Because a lot of people, they just can't slow down long enough, but they can because they've experienced taking a mirror or glass and putting the fog on there in order to do the little heart and stuff. So you can tell people to go on a mirror and create an exercise, which is what I did. I call it fogging the mirror. So as a health practitioner, a holistic health practitioner, I was trying to get people who don't have any breathing capacity to develop their breathing capacity. Rather than this extended exercise, I tell them, okay, get a mirror, walk up to, get close to the mirror, however close you got to be so that when you go, you can see the steam on the mirror. I said, so you start in the upper right corner, upper left corner, whichever, and you go from one side to the other. Then you drop down and you go, and you just basically do that snaking pattern all the way as far down as you can go with one breath. So you're going to go. And where you end, I tell them to put a little hash mark. And, other than the fact they might have some super window cleaner that doesn't allow them to, I said, and repeat. And you do that again. I said, what will happen is you will eventually see, and what you want to see is that little mark marching along the mirror. And that's a clear indicator of the increase in your breathing capacity. And what that does is that gets them into their body. And as you get them into their body, guess what? They get out of their mind. And with that increased breathing capacity, they're experiencing more of the internal massage, which is beginning to massage away those stress hormones and those stressful emotions. And when you get out of the stress and out of the toxicity and out of the trauma, you move automatically into the divine.
Mm-hmm.
So, and these are things that I share with you and other people in this course, but in the general public, we're just guiding them because they ain't got time and they don't want to hear all of that stuff.
Right.
But we are noticing the benefits and the power of the breath and the breath work, and this is why we're doing what we're doing, because we're here to guide people toward their divinity. And we're not in the space of fighting them to do that. But what I found is that with most aspects of being a health consultant is people want to fight because they love where they are. They are addicted to whatever state that they're in. And quick sidebar to that, everything that your brain processes, it processes as a chemical. Hormones, you've heard this, hormones are chemical messengers secreted by the brain and the organs, or primarily the endocrine system, the hormone system, Hormones are chemical messages secreted to send messages to and from the brain to other body parts. So those are chemicals. So your body processes everything as a chemical. When you get shocked, there's a rush of endorphins and so on, and those are chemicals. So when you do a thing repetitively, when you saturate the brain with chemicals repetitively, ever heard of drug addiction?
Mm-hmm.
Those are chemicals. So you can people get addicted to chemicals. And
Mm.
if emotions are chemicals, turned into chemicals, all of your experiences, good and bad, are turned into chemicals that are processed by the brain in order for you to have an experience that you can evaluate, elevate, uh, become under the stand of, and so on. You can get addicted to that, and people are addicted to their emotions because they're addicted to the chemicals. That's why some people have to go into anger management and it don't work, because they are dealing with the fact that this is a chemical that's being released, and you can't talk a chemical out of somebody's body. You can't talk it away because it's there. You have to basically bring in the other chemicals on the opposite end of the spectrum and achieve some type of balance. So you need a process for that. And if you're dealing with physiology, the breath is that tool. If everybody on the planet changed the way they breathe, we would be in utopia, and there would be practically hardly no disease. You're gonna have some, but it will go from 1,000 to like 0.9%, something like that, just by changing the breath. So that's, again, it's the power of the breath. Okay, so here's the next exercise, which we've already started. I want you to do this with me, and okay, let's go. And I'll talk about it as we go. Tip of the tongue, move from mouth, curl it back, inhale. Make this sound with me. Okay, you're a little girl in the classroom. You just heard that sound. The teacher was engaging you in some type of playful exercise, and she used a picture while she was guiding you through that sound. What was that picture of?
A train.
Yeah, exactly. So I call that exercise the choo-choo train. So when we're in a space with all the little children, and everybody has a little child in front of in them, and if you want to talk to that child and get them to a happy space, you do that exercise, and you're actually guiding them through a breathing exercise that changes the dynamic in the room. Other than just the plain obnoxious I ain't gonna do this, people, everybody's gonna be in a much better space, because when you awaken the happy child in somebody, you ain't got to deal with all that crap. You can get them to laugh or whatever, and you ain't. So, you can guide them like that without them announcing it, or you can say, okay, all the little boys and girls in here, we're going to take a train ride. So here we go. Here we go. We're going to get on the train. Once you get on the train, and this is a steam engine. Remember Thomas the Tank Engine?
Oh, yes.
And or the little steamboat.
Yep.
And so as it's chugging along, it's going, which is the chugging part. So we're going to imitate the train. We're going to take this train ride. Okay, so everybody on board? Woo woo. Okay. So now we're on board. The train is warming up. It's getting ready to take off. So it's, remember, we're the train now. We're leaving the station. We're picking up steam. Heading down the track. Picking up more steam. You got full steam. Round in the bend. You see the next station in sight. You're going to slow down. We're getting closer to the station. We're pulling into the station. Coming to a stop. You all enjoyed the train ride?
I love that. I'm definitely going to use it with my kids.
Hey, the old ones too. I don't care if they're 300 years old. They will love it. And so this is how we basically weave the lessons of the breath into a lesson that is joyful, playful, and doesn't leave any of the dynamics of the breath behind. Now you have the backdrop of the knowledge that I've given you up to this point to really get you to understand what's happening in this process. Everybody don't need to know. Everybody ain't ready for all of that information, but they get it anyway through the experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So any questions?
That what is the choo-choo breath? It reminded me kind of like the breath of fire. Is it is that the breath just with the mouth?
And this is how we flow from one technique to the next. We find things that are common and what have you. Now, with the breath of fire, remember I told you there are 3 things we use to modify the breath in order to create breath work. The first one I said was depth. So when you're doing that internal massage, when you're slowing the breath down, you're experiencing the depth of the breath. That's the breath master technique. That's its primary purpose, is to increase the depth and in turn to increase capacity. Now, the next thing that you just experienced was the pacing. And it lent itself, with that exercise, it lent itself a little bit to the rhythm because we started slow, picked it up, slowed it down, stopped it and what have you. So we created a kind of a rhythm, a wave and what have you. But more so, we engaged the pacing. We went from slow to fast to slow to stop. That's the pace. When you increase the pace of the breath, did you notice also that you got more excited?
Definitely.
So with the pacing, like the slow, still breaths engages the calm, and the faster paced breath brings excitement. But it doesn't have to bring excitement in a destructive way. Because I mentioned earlier about, some traumatic event and what have you. That's excitement in a destructive way, literally. But you can bring excitement in a joyful way using the breath. And we use these exercises to do that, to get people out of that headspace of the trauma.
Okay.
With the breath master technique, we take them back to the womb. With the choo-choo train breath, we take them back to childhood. So in this process, you also are awakening innocence, reawakening. See, I mean, you can take psychology 101, 202, 405, 910 times 1,000, and they don't give you this.
Right.
And this is why indigenous people are so far and away more advanced than a bunch of PhDs sitting in a boardroom or execs and all this kind of stuff think they are, just wizards and geniuses. They can't live off the land. They dumb as hell when it comes to integrating in life in the real sense, being an earth being. So anyway, so the next breath is the breath of fire. Obviously, you have experience with the breath of fire. So let me see your breath of fire.
Okay.
And before you start, in this process, every breath begins with the tongue placement. Every breath ends with the, unless we are doing another sound vibration, which is another lesson. That's lesson, the next, I think that's the next lesson that we're going to get strong to. So when you begin your inhalation, place the tip of the tongue to the roof of the mouth, curl it back, and then you engage your breath of fire. Then when you finish, you're going to express that final breath with a.
Okay.
And something else I didn't say earlier that I slightly caught, but you pretty much acclimated with your breath work in general. So I didn't really stress it, but I will express this. At the beginning of each breath, you want to begin nice and slow. At the end of each breath, you want to end nice and slow. I used to say slow, I used to say gentle, but I learned that terminology makes a difference. So now I say softly. And when I say it, to guide the impact of it and get people there, I say it softly. I don't say softly. I say it softly because that's what I want people to do when they're beginning the breath. You want to begin the breath nice and soft because you want to soften what's happening in the body. That's going to help you to move into your spirit. Okay?
Okay.
Okay. Okay, great. Now, when you were studying with the yogi and guru or whoever that person was and doing the previous iterations of breath training, did you learn the ujjayi breath?
I've only seen it a little bit in Kundalini in rites of passage, but not from the guru who I was studying with. He didn't teach the ujjayi breath. No.
Okay, because what you did just now reminds me of the ujjayi breath,
Okay.
which is more of a thrust and it's at that similar pace to what you're doing. Now, the breath of fire typically is an increased pace. So it's more. But I don't get hung up on that. I'm just pointing that out because of the fact that I want you to get a full picture of what it is that I'm saying, and also the backdrop of some of the other experiences that you may have had, that you may have seen, that you may very well see in the future, because you're going to see people doing different types of different paces and different rhythms when it comes to breath work, especially when you're talking about all these different aspects of pranayama, and then when you're talking about different phases or types of yoga like kundalini and what have you, which kundalini basically is a lot of very dynamic exercises done at the pace of the breath of fire. And then at the back end they'll do some bandhas and some locks and what have you to engage that energy internally. And these are the basic principles. You know, nobody told me this. I just saw it and I knew because that's what they do. And let me say this also. The reason why I call myself breath master and the reason why I am a quote unquote master is because I acknowledge the most basic, fundamental, and foundational principles of a thing, whatever that thing happens to be. And in the process of life, the most basic, foundational, fundamental aspect of life is the breath. And I want to master that. And so I have to acknowledge that and then practice those things. And that arrives me at a space of mastery, mastery of the breath, mastery of life, mastery of being able to analyze all of the aspects that come with the engagement of different processes in the course of life. So with that, we're going to really engage the fundamental aspects of the breath, the depth, pacing, the rhythm. So we're going to modify and change the pacing of the breath of fire. I'm not stuck on it being, you can do it faster, or you can do it slower. We're going to do all of that because your goal is to master you and to master this process. So you're going to engage the experience in very dynamic ways, fast, slow, in between, and constantly and consistently. So here's my breath of fire and what it is that I want to impart on you. Tip of the tongue, move from mouth, belly back, inhale. Lungs 2/3, 3/4 of the way full, never all the way full. Like the choo-choo train breath, we can pick up the pace. We can slow it down. We can actually increase the depth, even though we're increasing the speed, by increasing the thrust on the exhalation. You can slow it down and maintain the depth. Now, for people who have an issue with being able to do that through their nostrils, guess what we got? Hint, we did it before this.
Hold on. There we go.
We had a little lag time.
I'm sorry, you cut off. What did you say?
I said, for those people who have an issue with acclimating to the breath of fire
Oh, my internet.
using the nostrils, you connected? Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. It was just it was wobbly there for a moment, but we're
Yeah,
good now, I
yeah,
think.
okay, good. For those people who have an issue with acclimating to the breath of fire using the nostrils, we have something else. What is that? Hint. This is your hint.
For those people who have a what?
Who have an issue with acclimating through doing the breath of fire through the nostrils, because a lot of people can't go. So for those people, we have another exercise. And we just basically did that exercise before this. You recall what that exercise was? It says your bandwidth is low. Tell whoever else is using the internet, unless it's extremely vital, get off of there. It's her. It's your fault. No wonder.
I know.
She show up with all of that super energy, just sucking up all of it. Don't be showing up like no vortex, sucking up all the energy, woman.
I know. I was like, it was fine before. Now I'm like, I'm like the internet.
It's her. It's her. She got that mama G thing going on with the electricity, messing up the electronics and stuff. How you doing, baby girl?
Yeah, Bobby, Aaron, nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. As long as you don't mess stuff up, you all right.
You know what? I'm gonna get out of here. I just got finished doing my practice. I'm all radiating and stuff. Let me get out and stop messing with the electricity.
Yeah, you know, radiate it all offline.
Love you. I'll see you
Love you
later.
too. Good to see you. That was sweet. Her little over-energized self.
Right.
Now you notice, as soon as she closed that door, what happened?
The energy just kind of,
Not only as far as us, but the space in general, even for the internet.
right.
That's a powerful young woman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It stops stuff in the tracks
Right.
without even
Truly.
trying. She just
She
show up
really
and
did.
everything just like, am I supposed to be? Okay, what just happened?
It's true.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So now that we have calm in this space,
Okay.
what I was saying was a lot of people can't acclimate to the breath of fire so readily because it's a pace and a rhythm that they're not accustomed to. It's a depth that a lot of them aren't accustomed to. Some people, even though they may do the shallow breath and they're just doing like 3,000 breaths per minute, like they still can't because they change the depth when you're going. So pushing from the abdomen, a lot of the abdominal muscles don't work because they haven't used them forever. So we have another exercise for them that uses the mouth and the pacing. So what is that exercise?
Breath mastery.
No.
Choo-choo.
Exactly. It's the one that we use to transition from the breath master to this lesson. I just wanted to.
Okay, now that makes sense.
Yes. And see, after doing the choo-choo train, because I got into explaining the sound of the letter H and the engagement of the abdominal muscles and all that stuff, and then changing into the pacing and what have you. And it dawned on me that this is actually a good way for people who have an issue with doing the breath of fire through their nostrils to get accustomed to the changing of the pace and the rhythm and to actually activate the abdominal muscles. Because you got those people that have these barrels in front of them that they call a stomach, which says that they haven't used their abdominal muscles forever, and they've gotten distended and what have you. And what I tell people when I'm giving them breath work to aid their weight loss is that when you engage the abdominal muscles, you actually begin to limit the space for waste accumulation. And if you have accumulated waste, when the abdominal muscles come back in, then you're going to get rid of a lot of the waste because basically, as in the subtitle of my book, you're not overweight, you're over waste. So when you get rid of the waste, there goes the weight, there goes the conditions and the issues, because those basically are a byproduct of the accumulated toxins and waste that you have in your body that's causing the organs to basically break down and the systems to break down. So, and that's the nature of disease. And Dr. Sebi, he famously says there's only one disease, it's mucus.
Right.
I agree with the first part of that statement. There's one disease, but I don't agree that it's mucus. I agree the one disease is eating. Because it's this. For people who aren't having sex, it's the number one primary drive. And for people who are having sex, it's only the number two when they're having sex. When they stop having sex, they got to go eat.
Right.
So people, again, there's an addiction process where you're saturating all of the stuff that comes with, the nuances of eating, the feel good, the sating and the ooh and ah of the sugar addiction, all those things, they take over and people become, balloons and whatever. And so when you're dealing with people like that, you got to give them something that gets them out of that space. And you got to have these little techniques, and this is one of them, the choo-choo train, to help them to activate the abdominal muscles that haven't been utilized dynamically for years. Okay, so we're going to move right along. Let me see what other lessons I got here. So let me change my view for a moment. I gotta do a little bit of background stuff here, so pardon me. Any questions along the line of what it is that I've shared so far?
Yeah, so the breath of fire that you did that was really fast paced, and the one that I did that was a little slower paced, is there going to be a difference in like how it affects the body? And is one more, for lack of a better word, just better? I know you said it doesn't really matter to you, but is there one that I would like, is it the goal to get to the faster pace?
Yes, it's the goal to experience the ebbs and flows of the rhythm and the depth and the pacing throughout with each and every technique. What that's going to do is that's going to allow you to maximize the benefits of all aspects of the breath. And so with that, you're going to basically practice full spectrum. And what it is that I can tell you pales in comparison to what you will learn in the experience. So this is why you're going to delve deeply into your practices and garner those things that I may or may not express in the moment, because there's so much to this that I can't verbalize, that actually comes with experience, that you're going to have to go through the process in order to get acclimated to that and to experience the richness and the fullness of it. Okay, I got to go somewhere else to find this information. Make sure I'm on point. So we're going to get into some movement. So we've got the breath of master technique. We got the breath of fire that you've experienced both, and we're going to get into the movement. One quick second. Let me remember what I got to type in here to get this. So with that, what we're going to do is some different types of body postures. Now, let me give you the basic principle of yoga. The basic principle of yoga is yoking the breath to movement. And so what happens in that process is we wind up adjusting the movement according to the breath and the breath according to the movement. So another principle with the breath is expansion and contraction. Those two things are paramount when you're doing breath work, because in order for you to experience the pacing, the depth, and the rhythm, you actually are going to have to expand and contract at a different pace, a different rhythm, and a different depth, the internal aspects of the body. So you're going to expand and contract the organs and the body. So any expansive movement, just like the lungs, are part of the inhalation process. Any contractive movement is part of the exhalation. So we want to be mindful of that in this process. That's going to help us really master the breath and really be able to impart a lot when it comes to the teaching process, i.e. the guiding of others' experience in the process. So that's, does that answer your question?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anything else?
No.
Okay. And I like to ask this question, not for my own ego, but for my own edification, to make sure I'm doing my job. Is the information I'm conveying clear and simple? Are you able to grasp what it is that I'm sharing in a way that's satisfying to you and you feel like you're progressing in your awareness in this process?
Yes, absolutely. I do. Mm-hmm.
Okay, fantastic. Then I'm doing my job.
Yes, you're doing a good job for sure.
Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to talk about physical aspects of the body, as far as how you place your body and how you move using the expansion and the contraction. And then we're going to talk about other things that you can do when you're basically in stillness that are going to be beneficial. So there are three basic body postures: lying, seated, and standing. You're going to get this in the next lesson also, along with or next lesson or two, when it comes to the breath work. So because we really want to, what the guiding principle of this process is being able to turn any natural movement or still space into breath work, i.e., be able to do breath work whatever you're doing, because whatever you're doing, you're breathing. And again, in order to turn whatever you're doing while you're breathing into breath work, you just change the rhythm, the pacing, and the depth of the breath, one of those three or a combination thereof. And you're doing breath work, and you're experiencing a whole nother dynamic in your body, all of your body, full aspect, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, so on and so forth. So a simple thing as sitting down and getting up is an exercise. Any physical movement that you do repetitively is going to engage certain muscles to the point where it's going to cause those muscles to engage repetitively and exercise those muscles, and so that those muscles can become stronger. That's exercise. So sitting down and getting up is an exercise that I call get-ups. I created this exercise when I was dealing with someone as a holistic health consultant who really had an issue, still has an issue with acclimating to the breath, because she is trapped in here. I mean, trapped. It's amazing how trapped this woman is. But anyway, after a year and some change of working with this woman, I was frustrated one day with her and the breath, so I asked her, I said, what are you doing? She said, sitting down. I said, do me a favor. She said, what? I said, stand up. She stood up. Then I told her, I said, what are you doing now? She's standing up. I said, do me a favor. She said, what? I said, sit down. And I repeated that several times, right? And by the time we got to the 8th or 10th time, she was breathing fuller and deeper because she'd been exercising. She's like, this is some work. I said, exactly. And I changed it. What I told her, I began to apply the breath. I told her, I said, now, before you stand up, when you sit up, what's the first thing that you do? She said, lean forward. I said, when you lean forward, that's a contractive movement as far as the truncating of the body. So you're going to exhale when you lean forward. I said, now, when you stand up and you become upright, your body's going to elongate, and your abdominal and your chest and abdominal region is going to expand, because you're coming out of that contracted state and you're expanding. So you're going to inhale. I said, now, when you get ready to sit down, before you sit down, what's the first thing you do? She said, I lean forward. I said, when you lean forward again, just like when you were sitting down, that's a contractive movement. So you're going to exhale. I said, and then when you sit down, first you're going to let your bottom hit the chair. So you continue to exhale until your bottom hits the chair. Then when you sit in the chair, you're going to do what? You're going to lean back. That's an expansive movement. So you're going to inhale. And that's how get-ups was born. So lean forward, exhale, stand up, inhale. Lean forward, exhale, sit down, lean back, inhale. And it's a very simple exercise that everybody does every day, but they aren't turning into into an exercise. We're turning it into not only an exercise, we're turning it into breath work by applying the principles of expansion and contraction, which is the simple physical and physiological dynamic of what happens internally with the lungs and the diaphragm. And then for conversational purposes, you got the backdrop of the internal massage, the emotional massage, the endorphins, the hormones, all of that stuff is going on. All of that's going on. And we're not even saying any of that. We're just breathing, standing up, sitting down, breathing, standing up, sitting down. And the other thing that's happening when you lean forward and you truncate this, that's an additional squeeze. Because now you engage in another aspect of the body. You're engaging actual movement, external movement, With the breath, that's internal movement. You know, you got the diaphragm, the lungs, that's inside the body. Now you're moving, you're using larger muscle groups and you're engaging external movement, you know. So these are the nuances of how we actually help people along. And so let's do some get-ups. Now I got a different chair that I'm gonna use for that. That's my stool. This is my little chair with the back. So when you're doing get-ups, you want to have a chair, and this is also a good position to be in for a lot of the other exercises that we're going to be doing in the next couple of strongs. Remember I said 3 body postures, 3 basic: lying, seated, and standing. Those are the 3 postures that we go through the course of the day. So we're actually going to do something lying. That's going to be another other aspects of what we're sharing today. So from the seated position, we're going to do some get-ups. So we can lean back, slide down, but of course that's not comfortable as far as getting up. So we're going to come here. We're going to still have space to lean back, but not so much. And so from here, and hands at your side, we're going to engage the breath. So remember, every time we're doing breath work, we start with the inhalation. So tip of the tongue to the roof of the mouth, fill it back, inhale. And when we're doing this, we want to make sure we have our feet planted well enough. And let me just give a little more explanation before I get into the exercise. When we come forward, we want to lean forward, and we actually want to put our pressure on our feet and feel it, our engagement of our thighs, so that when we lean forward, we can raise our bottom off of the seat without having to use our hands. So we're going to allow the legs to engage. So our bottom comes up, then we're going to stand up. Then when we exhale, we're going to come down, and we're going to come down far enough so that our bottom actually touches the chair before we begin to lean back. Some people, they don't sit down, they drop. Those people, they really don't have, they haven't activated some of their fine motor skills, and this is my professional opinion. So a lot of those people, they got some other stuff going on with them as far as how they engage life, because a lot of times they don't take the time to allow themselves to flow into a situation. They'll just jump right in, or they'll just run right past some stuff, including conversation with people. Some people, you know, you're talking to them and what have you, and as you're making this statement, they're saying what's on their mind and not really hearing what you got to say. You know, right. That's a whole lot of, it's so much stuff with people. Anyway, so this is what, you know, we want to make sure that we're using our body, and this is going to strengthen and tone our legs. And see, the other aspect of a lot of those people who have a lot of weight issues, they have weak legs and they have pressure on the knees. They got knee issues. They wind up with a knee replacement, a hip replacement, or this replacement, or that replacement, because their muscles that are supposed to engage and move the skeleton are weak. These are, you know, we're talking breath work, but you can't talk breath work without talking the entire body. So within this process, we're engaging all aspects of movement, all aspects of stillness, because we're talking about breath work in every phase and aspect of life, because you're breathing in every phase and aspect of life. So why not maximize the opportunity, or at least have the awareness of how you can, using simple foundational principles. This is what's going to move us toward mastery. Okay? Looks like I got a glitch. My screen froze. It flipped around. Can you hear me clearly? Okay. Sakina coming back in the room. So you breaking. Yeah, I'm experiencing that. So your bandwidth is.
Yep, I got it. You're good.
Okay. So tip of the tongue. Let's go ahead and do the exercise. Tip of the tongue, roof of the mouth, curl it back, inhale. Hands at your side. Exhale, lean forward.
So the bottom comes off of the chair. Inhale, stand up.
Exhale, lean forward. Bending the knees. Lowering the body. So the bottom hits the chair or sits on the chair, and then you sit down and lean back. Inhale. As you lean back. Exhale, lean forward.
Oh.
Inhale, stand up. Exhale, lean forward.
Oh, bottom hits the chair or touching the chair. Inhale, lean back.
Once more, nice and slow. We're moving at the pace of the breath.
Inhale, stand up.
Exhale, lean forward.
Remember on the inhalation, tongue goes to the roof of the mouth, throw it back, inhale, lean back.
Once more, drop the tongue, exhale, open the mouth.
Tip the tongue, roof of the mouth, curl it back, inhale, come up.
Exhale, lean forward.
Bottom hits the chair, mouth closes, tongue goes to the roof of the mouth, curl it back, and inhale, lean back.
Okay. How was that?
That was awesome. It's just amazing how the amount of I've done a lot of yoga in my life, and I continue to do a lot of yoga, but I just observed in my body how when you said you're moving as fast as your breath, I observed my breath wanting is like programmed to move faster than my movement. So I was like inhaling, but I was like, oh, I'm still in the movement, but my inhalation was done. So I was like, okay, so it was just interesting to see that in myself that I hadn't clocked before.
Mhm. And see, this is where one of my master teachers, he said, you can look at people and see who's doing yoga. A lot of people aren't doing yoga. A lot of people are just moving their body, or they're exercising, or they're doing calisthenics, because they aren't engaging the breath with movement. That's what I liked about kinetic yoga. It was a blessing to me to begin my true yoga journey with kinetic yoga. I was with a young lady who said, let's take this yoga class. I was like, okay, you're my partner, take class, take a class. And then she gave me the details and whatever. I learned that it wasn't a class, it was a teacher certification. And I'm like, okay, I got the money, I got the time, I love you. So, hey, we do that. And we did that, and I was like, whoa. The main thing, because I had been on the journey again after losing my mom, I actually did a 6 Healing Sounds class because of the breath work. I'd done that with this woman who's a yogini who was married to this Chinese guy who's a Taoist, and she taught the 6 Healing Sounds, and I studied that for a little bit. And then when this young lady came along, we got into the yoga thing. I was like, okay, I've been prepared. So this was like, my everything was shifting, and I got the answers that I had requested in order to be able to deal with my body and all of this kind of stuff. And so what the main thing that this guy expressed was tying the movement, the breath to movement. Every movement we do, we're either inhaling or exhaling. And where I was at that time with my attention to detail, I got deeper into my own practice that wasn't quote unquote kinetic yoga. It was my practice. And this is the mistake a lot of people make. They will get so deep into the branch or whatever you want to call it of yoga and being so rote in their practice, they'll do the same thing over and 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 over, even without tying the breath to it, and say they're doing yoga. My thing was, That when he shared that with me, that was it. I didn't need to hear anything else because it took me off into the stratosphere in my own practice and analysis of my own movement or whatever. And that expanded that simple principle of tying the breath to movement. You've heard that in your yoga practices, right?
Yeah.
That's one of the first things they tell you.
Yeah.
But then they don't do that.
Right.
Because they got a short window of time to teach you all, to share with you all these different things. And they're trying to make sure that you get this movement, and they don't have time to actually make you slow down and flow with the breath,
Right.
And so that right there in the beginning of your training just dismantles the potential of everything, which is why only a few people get to become true yogis and gurus, because those are the people who actually slow down, take the time, and analyze in their own personal practice. So I'm glad you noticed that, and I want you to really hone in on that. And remember what I said about teaching. I'm here to guide your experience. Now, as I guided you just now, you learned from that experience something that you hadn't learned in all your years of yoga practice.
Right.
I could have told you that, but would you have known it the way you know it now?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And this is how you're going to impact people with the way you're going to guide them in the future. So that's get-ups. Now remember, I'm going to send you videos. I'm going to send you a video on the breath master technique. I'll send you a video on the breath of fire. I'm going to send you a video on get-ups. Now there's one more thing that I want to share with you. Like 10 minutes. This one is a lying posture. And so we're going to engage what I call the breath of life clinic. Are you familiar with interval training?
I've heard of it, but I haven't been in it.
Okay. Interval training is basically where you're training in intervals. You have an interval where you're moving really fast and intense, and an interval where you're moving slow and methodical. And then you alternate between the two. And this is actually creating a rhythm where you're going fast, slow, fast, slow, fast, slow. I should have, let me put this thing on what I should have had it on airplane mode. Do not disturb and airplane mode. Shut them down. Anyway, so with interval training, the benefits are, and this is something that I was told, I think Dr. Ackers said that this is something that a lot of the elite athletes have been using for eons, the Olympians and all of this kind of stuff, they use interval training. He says to one of the quickest ways to burn fat. High intensity exercise followed by slow methodical, followed by high intensity. And you basically you have short intervals of a burst of energy and then extended energy of relaxation and what have you, but you're still moving. You're not sitting down, getting up, doing some stuff, sitting down. You're doing a slow, gentle process that allows the body to cool down and reacclimate. Then you hit a real high intensity thing. So we're going to do that with the breath, where we're not going to be moving our body. We're going to be doing internal work. And we're going to use the two primary breaths that we have shared so far, which is the breath of fire and the breath master technique. So when you do the breath of fire for an extended period of time or for a short interval, it's going to be real intense. It's going to bring your energy up and get you all hyped and what have you. And then when you do the breath master technique, it's going to slow you down and calm things down. And you're going to alternate between the two. And we're going to do that in a lying posture, because what I like to tell people is this: you can do breath work, and you should, before you get out of bed and when you go to bed. You can do breath work throughout the day, but the major times to do it is before you get out of bed, i.e. before you start your day, because it's going to set up how you're going to engage your day. A lot of people jump up running. If you set your body and your mind and your spirit in a calm space at the beginning of your day, you have clarity and you can actually look over the things that you're going to do, because most people are always projecting what it is they're going to do the next day. You know, you leave work, you think about the project that you're working on, you go home, you think about it, and then you get up in the morning like, oh, well, I got to do X, Y, Z for this project today. You know,
Right.
and you get, all into that, wound up. But you can do that in a very calm way.
Mm.
And when you do that in a calm way, and you project that you're going to accomplish these things in a reasonable and calm fashion, you actually project, i.e., create it happening smoothly, dynamically, and even richer than it would happen if you projected that stress and that tension on it that most people do every day. And that shifts your whole the dynamic of your whole life and perspective when you do that. So first things first, when you get up in the morning, you don't get up, you do breath work. Unless you got to pee, then you get up and you come back and do breath work. And then you can do breath masks. Like, oh, let me give you a couple of things before we get into that, since we're winding down. The breath of fire has, other than the physiology, it has two primary purposes. You got a lot of other sub purposes, such as aiding digestion and yada, yada, yada. But two primary purposes, as far as the emotional and physiological state of the body is, it brings energy to help awaken the body and to prepare you for some type of hyper or hyped event. It also burns off energy. So if you're coming out of a space where it's been hyper and stressful and whatever, and you just I can't just slow down and breathe right now, man. I got too much stuff going on. I'm stressed and that. You engage the breath of fire, and you do a thing that I call catching up with the breath. So if you're moving 100,000 miles an hour or whatever, and I'm telling you, you need to breathe, you need to calm down, whatever, you can't do that, then it's best to just breathe at the pace that you're at right now. If you're at a hyper speed pace, then you just jump right into the, or, and just like we did that choo-choo train, and you basically get a grip on the whole energy. Now, I know for a fact that as I did what I just did, when I was speaking and moving excitedly, it took your energy level up. But then when I slowed down and I actually did that final, it brought your energy down. Am I correct?
Yes, you are.
That's the dynamic of the breath. You didn't do anything.
Mm.
I took control of you.
Wow.
I had you racing and running, and then I had you chilling. And this is how stress is contagious.
Right.
You get a lunatic acting the fool in the environment, everybody's and they lose it. And then somebody gets a hold of the lunatic, calm him, sits his behind down and what have you, and then start talking to everybody, and then they calm him, let's bring everybody down. Those are the two extremes. And this is what we're dealing with on a daily basis. So at the end of the day, the two extremes of your day, at the end of the day, you want to do breath work. So when you lay down, you're going to engage this body posture and you're going to do breath work. And you're going to, and the Breath of Life Clinic has the added benefit of allowing you to gain composure while at the same time increasing the lung capacity, increasing your capacity overall, and your ability to move between situations, whether they're hyper or whether they're calm, because you're moving from a hyper breath to a calm breath, hyper breath to a calm breath, and you're able to move through life in that way because you basically practice in your physiological spiritual being what it's like to move from one space to the other in a dynamic way and be in control of shifting at will. Man, I need to write this stuff down.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah. So this is basically how we're going to engage this process. So, um,
I love that. Being control of shifting out well. That's
yeah, yeah. And those are basically still using those simple principles of the pacing, the depth, and the rhythm of the breath, and engaging the breath to movement. And now we're adding on the principle of interval training, taking advantage of moving from one interval of exercise to another, and the dynamics of those exercises, the pace and rhythm and energy that comes from either of those, and being able to weave it as we see fit. Now, when you are coming out of a stressful event, again, you can't just get into the calm breath. You engage the breath of fire and you slow it down and allow yourself to become calm. And you can actually take over everybody in the environment and don't say a word to anybody. Question mark, right? How do I do that?
right.
You do you. You do your breath work. On my Instagram page, I was at the Healing Lodge, Sister Namajala. No, not Namajala. Najia. I don't know if you met her. She used to live there. She's her name is Deborah Browder. She's an artist. She actually painted the teepee.
Okay.
Yeah. So Najia is an art therapist, and she brought me in to do some work with some children out at the Healing Lodge one day, some breath work and whatever. Out of that came a number of other things. I was telling the children that, you can change the energy of any space that you're in by changing the way you breathe. And she wrote that down. I'm like, oh, when I saw it in writing, I was like, wow. And so when I imparted it to the children, one of the little guys, when he went back to his classroom, because he was a fifth grader and it was mostly fourth graders and just a couple of fifth graders, he got in his fifth grade class and he's telling all the other people his experience. And he said, I can change the energy in any room that I'm in. Another little boy like, hey, you crazy. What are you talking about? You can't change nothing. You can't do nothing. He's like, yes, I can. He said, it happened with Miss Browder because she was in the class and she told the little girl and she told everybody whenever they know she's coming to do their breath work before she gets there. And everybody was running around because there's one boy who was acting crazy and people was following him. They was tearing stuff up or whatever. And there's one little girl. She was sitting over there by herself. And she was doing her breath. She's like, he said, and everybody's following the little boy, and the little boy, he heard the little girl breathing. He heard her breathing, and he stopped. And then he turned around, he said to everybody else, shh, she's breathing. And then he sat down beside, this is the little boy talking, of course. Then he sat beside the little girl, and he started breathing just like she was. And then everybody in the room sat down and started breathing. And then when Miss Browder came in, she walked in, everybody was sitting down like little Buddhas, just breathing. Wow. That little girl changed the whole energy in the room, and she wasn't doing nothing but breathing. So you can't tell me that it don't work. I seen it happen. She told me about it, and I done it too. And she shared that with me, and it's on my Instagram page, him giving that little testimony. She walked in and she just taped, oh man, I was like, this is so divine and benevolent. If I can impart this to the babies,
right,
worry about the next generation and the generation after.
Wow. Oh, yeah.
So definitely share this with your children and give them that message. You can change the energy in any room that you're in simply by changing the way you breathe. And also the backdrop of you can't change anybody's anything except for you. So you change the way you breathe, you change the way you operate, and you change your impact in the environment. So that's enough of that. We're going to get in what I call the lying lotus. It is not the pure lotus position because I can't do that. My legs don't move like that. I'm not a noodle. But my legs are going to be crossed and we're going to be lying on our back.
Okay.
And in that position, we're going to do what I call the breath of life clinic. We're going to alternate between the breath of fire and the breath master technique. We're going to start, of course, with the breath master technique. We're going to move from the breath master technique. We're going to flow into the breath of fire. And we're going to do that back and forth. We're going to do 3 breath of fire, 3 breath master technique, and probably about 60 breath of fire. And the way I
Okay.
count breath of fire is I count by tens. And I'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Throw up a finger, and I'll do that. And once I get 6 fingers, then I'll go ahead and flow back into the breath master technique. And we'll do 3 of those. And for the sake of time, we're just going to do 1 round of breath master, 1 round of breath of fire, and 1 round of breath master on the back end. Now you can stretch this out in perpetuity. You can do 500 breath of fire and 501 breath master technique, because you're always going to have 1 more breath master technique, because it's going to be the beginning and the closing. Okay.
Okay.
So in your practice, I want you to just extend this out. Again, we're just doing this right now for the sake of time. So if you review this, or if you review the video, don't just stop with doing what it is that we're practicing or what it is that you're practicing with along with the video. Don't stop there. Do your practice outside of that. This is just an initial instruction to get you acclimated so that you can begin to do your own practice. This is where a lot of people get tripped up. They only do what it's like people who just don't do yoga except when they go to yoga class. This is to set you up so you can take and move and do you and expand, 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 expand. The more you practice, the more you expand, the better you become at this, the more adept you become at it, and the greater its impact on you and those around you. And you'll be able to catch up with and also counterbalance the little super energy person that just ran through and jacked up everything. I'm sure you've already had quite a bit of practice of doing that anyway, but
Yes.
this is another dynamic in that regard. Sure, I got my face here. Okay, yeah. So you can get into a position how you want. I'm gonna explain best I can. So you raise your left leg, place your right hand on top of your left leg, left hand on top, and you bring it and you put it down, resting the foot. The foot should hit the perianal array, the muscle of the perineum. The heel of the foot should hit that, and then you just lock it in and hold it there. Then you take the other leg, right hand, the left hand on top of the right foot, and you bring it down and you lock that foot in between the calf and the thigh of the left leg. Again, heel of the foot, striking the perianal array or the perineum, and you hold it there. And in this position, you lie on your back. This is your position when you're laying down, when you first go to bed, and before you get out of bed. There's a lot of dynamics when it comes to hip opening and lower back and all of that good stuff that helps with the graceful aging process. And I started doing this mainly because I'm a guy, tight hips and all of that. But I found that there's so many nuanced benefits of it. So we're going to go right into the practice. Again, this is called the Breath of Life Clinic, because it is the clinic that really teaches you the dynamics of the breath as far as what you're experiencing. Without a whole lot of verbalization, this is going to teach you some dynamics of and the nuances of the breath. And again, that whole shifting of the spirit. So tip of the tongue to the roof of the mouth, curl it back and inhale nice and slowly into the abdomen. Release the tongue, drop the jaw, exhale with up. Relaxing the body, allowing the body to totally relax as if you're going to sleep. Give the tongue, move the mouth, curl it back once again. Inhale softly into the abdomen. Chest expanding outward. Shoulders relaxing. Neck relaxing. Lungs full,
Release the tongue, drop the jaw, exhale with them. Exhaling tension from the body. Relaxing even more. Over the tongue, move the mouth, pull it back. Inhale and calm. Release the tongue, drop the jaw, exhale with up. Next inhalation, we'll set up the breath of fire to the tongue, to the mouth, further back, inhale. Lungs, two-thirds, three-quarters way full, breath of fire. Exhale, final breath. Back to the breath master technique. Tip of the tongue, move the mouth, throw it back, inhale. Release it and exhale. Throw the tongue back, inhale. Release it and exhale. Last breath, tip of the tongue, move the mouth, throw it back, softly inhale. Relax body. Release the tongue, drop the jaw, exhale with them, softly. Now, if you're at the beginning of your day, you can gradually stretch your legs out and get up and begin your day. It's the end of your day, you gradually stretch your legs out, continue to relax, and go on off to a nice, rewarding sleep. You look like you like that.
Yeah, it was very peaceful. I feel very peaceful, very just, yeah, that was really nice.
And see, in that process, you move through calm, excitement, and back to calm. And that's
Mm,
what life, the way we live life,
right.
the way we should live life. You know, calm, you deal with life in its experiences, which may be erratic, chaotic, invigorating, exciting, and all of that stuff. And then you want to move into a calm, relaxed space so that your body can process everything that you've experienced in between and get back to homeostasis or at ease. You know, the body's natural state is a state of ease. And the processes we go through causes the body to move through uneasiness. And some people wind up diseased, and we call that a disease. So we don't want to wind up constantly uneasy or constantly diseased or diseased, which most people in this, as I call it, non-culture, they wind up diseased. They start the day out, they're listening to all kind of crazy radio shows and whatever. And, you know, they got the radio blaring all day and what have you, and they cussing and they fussing and they see this one, they're like, this and that, and so and so, and all, you know, it's just nonstop. They're totally, and you look at these people in their bodies are misshapen, they're distorted, and they have all this accumulation of waste and toxins and all of these kind of things. So they're constantly ill at ease, diseased, uneasy, when the body, all it wants to do is to be at ease. And so these techniques will allow us to harmonize with the ease of life and experience the joy of life. And that, my dear, is the end of our session.
Wonderful. Lovely.
Is there anything that you want to say that you want recorded before I end the recording? And we can talk, have a few more minutes after that if you'd like.
I just wanted to go over like the videos that's gonna be that's starting this week, of me sending you the videos of the ones that we went over today, the breaths that we went over today. Okay, great.
And there may come a time where we won't have time to really do all of the lessons of that particular strong, that I will include the additional video, and it will be your job to go through that video. But let me say this about that. Each lesson is foundation for the next lesson or lessons. So even if I missed a particular lesson, it's only pretty much about a nuanced aspect of something that you've already done that's going to expand your awareness and knowledge and grasp of the things that you've gotten before. That's why we, you know, getting more stuff. So that's the progression. So if for the sake of time, I don't have the window to give you because of the fact that we're engaging, and because the other thing is when we go to the next lessons, there's going to be some review at the beginning of the lessons before I share with you the next thing. Say if I got a video from you and it was like the day before, the day of, and I had either had time to review it or I didn't, I may have to do an assessment before I see whether or not you're ready for the next lesson. And if and depending upon that assessment, I may wind up giving you less or more. But if there's something where I think it's absolutely necessary that you grasp this before we have our next session, then I'll include that video of that nuanced aspect or segment or training or whatever. I'll include that with the email that I send with the ones that are already recorded and that we've gone over in that particular strong. So we've hit the lessons that we had for the day. So the next time we come, we're going to have some more lessons. It's always going to be a minimum of, I think either 4. When I say that, it's generally more than that, from the standpoint that when you look at what we did today, okay, I covered 3 primary things, 3 primary techniques, the breath of fire, the breath master technique, and the one in between, the choo-choo train. And then we covered 2 different exercises, the get-ups and the lying lotus, which was, you know, not really exercise, movement exercise, external, it was internal exercise. And it engaged 2 of the body postures that we talk about, that we will be talking about. So say, for instance, when we get into the movement and what have you, and there's, or even the sound, and I say, okay, there's 3 different sounds we're going to use. Actually, there's 4, but we're going to work on the first 3. And then if there's not enough time to do all of the lessons that have to do with those 3 sounds, then you'll have the majority of them in the process of the engagement. And then you may have an additional one that like we didn't go over because of the sake of time. Because when we're doing some of this stuff, again, you can expand it outward. Like, okay, now I did the lying lotus. I could have taken that from, instead of doing one, and one, breath master, then breath of fire, then breath master. We could have done, 4 or 5 of the breath of fire sandwiched between, 5 or 6 of the breath master technique. So that's the time scenario. And depending upon where you are and the amount of explanation and review that we have to do in process will determine how many things I can impart while we're on the screen. And so from that perspective, I want to make sure that you get foundationally what we have to do for this strong, so that come next strong, you'll be well prepared for the lessons that are coming subsequently.
Makes sense.
And what I will request from you in the way of a video. Now, how you do the video is specifically up to you, but it has to have, there's some minimal requirements. The minimal requirements are this. I need to see your ability and your adeptness at each of the lessons, the principal lessons that I share. Now, lying lotus, whatever, that's just a body position. You already can do that. I know that. So the principal thing I want to see and that is your ability to master the breath of life clinic, or at least to get a handle on it so that you can move towards mastery over time. And that's built on the breath of fire and breath master technique. So I want to see that you can master those 2 things. And I want to be able to hear you audibly. And I probably wear my headset at some point so I can pick up the finer sounds. And let me know also when I send you this recording, if you can hear the sound of me inhaling. Let me know right now. Can you hear the sound of me inhaling right now?
Not too much.
Okay, so I'm gonna have to use my headset because you can hear it more readily because it's like right here at the mic and what have you. That's an adjustment that I have to make. It took me a time to realize that may be happening, and obviously you see I still haven't totally adjusted. I don't like that thing on my head when I'm trying to teach. Feels weird, looks weird, is weird, but anyway, it's obviously necessary. So I'll do that next time. Make sure I have that so that you can really hear. Because the other thing about this software on YouTube is they have this dampening, sound dampening, so it's to clear out quote unquote white noise. And the sound of the breath, that inhalation and even the sometimes gets faded out with their software. But eventually I want to be able to hear you making the sound audibly. Now, if I come closer, could you hear me then?
It was like a wind whisper.
Yeah, and that's basically what it is. And you want to be able to hear that. And the way you acclimate to that for yourself is how you place the tip of the tongue to the roof of the mouth. Now, if you have the very tip of the tongue to the roof of the mouth down the center line, it'll take some practice or just natural ability to be able to audibly express the sound of inhalation. But if you have the fullness of the curvature of the tongue, all that, instead of this, all that fitting into, so you got the full curvature of the tongue fitting into the curvature of the roof of the mouth to the point where you create a pocket.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you inhale, you'll hear the sound more readily. Are you experiencing that difference?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you want to get to the point where you can actually make that sound louder. And when you create that pocket and what have you, you're basically kind of creating an amphitheater inside your mouth that allows for the sound to just be more all-encompassing and more full and fuller. I don't teach that initially because, I can't throw so much at you, but incrementally. So now it's a good time for me to express that. Because if I tell you, you know, put the tip of the tongue, and then I tell you, well, if you want to do this, then put a whole expansive tongue. And a lot of people just get confused until they get, you know, foundational aspects of the tip of the tongue and all of that stuff principle. So yeah, so you're going to send me back a video or several videos. Keep them short and sweet. I don't need to
Okay.
see your full-blown practice. Don't send me no 2-hour video of you doing everything.
Okay.
Send me a 3 to 5 minute video of each of the things that you're doing. And if you can weave them all together into a 12 or 15-minute video, that's fine. Because what's going to happen is this. I'm going to come on here on Zoom and I'm going to pull up that video. I'm going to review it, and I'm also going to critique and give you some comments along the way. So I might, you know, you might be into a scenario where you're showing me the breath of fire and I see something that I need to address. I may pause that and then I'll do a comment and then I'll, you know, go back to the video. I may run through several seconds or minutes of it because I know basically I've seen what you've done, and so we don't need to see all of the fluff. And I'll get right to it so that I can impart the insights that I need to give you in as short and timely a fashion as possible. That way, we ain't spending a whole lot of time, because I don't want you spending, you know, 2 hours watching videos and trying to practice along with them. I want you to get into your work and show me what you're doing, and I can critique that. Then you can go right back to the drawing board or the mat and do what it is you got to do and be ready come the next session.
Okay.
So even though it's slow, it is extremely fast. We're going to be doing a lot, and it doesn't seem like a lot, especially to me since I've been doing this for so long. But I realize that, you know, when you're shifting life perspective and practices, it can be a lot. And I want it to be, and the reason why I asked about whether or not I'm conveying these things simple and whether or not they're easy to process is because I want you to get it and just move with it. I don't want you to get stuck and hung up on anything.
Okay.
Yeah. So we good?
We're good.
All righty then. I'm gonna